facing up Parliament Street. T&R Goodbody, Grenville Tobacco Factory, 200 girls hand-rolling cigarettes. And of course, the far corner, Sunlight Chambers. And of course, the variegation around it is men working, ploughing and bricklaying and doing all sorts of jobs, fishermen, dirty in their clothes, working hard. And underneath, women drawing water, washing the clothes, and of course, in the process, using soap. And sure, why wouldn't they? For isn't it Sunlight Chambers, and was one time the headquarters of Barrington's, Levers and Crean's, soap manufacturers. Parliament Street is one of the most exciting streets in Dublin. There's Des Bratnock's shop. I must call in later and see if he got any bargains. And I always thought he was an Englishman. The old tailor's shears in Abraham's window. There was a story about a duel in Dublin one time between two master tailors. And when they got out to Drumconda, where the duel was to be held, said, is it pistols or swords? Neither. Tailor's scissors. Could you imagine the two of them at one another with them? The duel ended when one fella had only one ear and the other fella had only half a nose. Well, I was down in the Winding Stair bookcase at the Haley Bridge and I bought this lovely book, The Bridal of Drimnagh. And in here is a poem on presenting a pair of scissors to a lady. 'Tis says a scissors or a knife, a saw or shears or cleaver, are harbingers of endless strife between giver and receiver. But sayings like this I little heed, and just to prove their folly, a pair of scissors made by Reed I gave my sweetheart Polly. And then it says Reed's, a celebrated Dublin cutler whose establishment still exists in Parliament Street. December the 22nd, 1882. That's 101 years ago. They were in Parliament Street. They were probably the first shop in Parliament Street because Reed's go back to 1670, possibly making them the oldest cutlers in Europe. Well, John Reed Cowell.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm grand.
Little did I think 40 years ago, looking in that window, making up my mind whether I'd buy a never-ready razor for the one-sided Bohemian blades, yes, or the double-edged for the Max Smile and the Northlight blades, that this is the oldest shop in Dublin City.
That's right, as far as we know.
That the Reeds go back to 1670.
Right.
Where exactly did it start off originally?
Well, the earliest record we have of the Reeds in business was in 1670. There was a sword cutler, a maker of swords, on Blind Quay. That is Lord Exchange Street now. And we were in 1670, as far as we can trace it up, until 1750. 1750, we moved into Crane Lane, which is the rear of Parliament Street.
Yes.
And some years later, 5 or 6 years after that, the first of the wide streets, one of the first was Parliament Street. And we then turned from Crane Lane and faced out into Parliament Street.
Very nice.
Which gave us the benefit of a new
You have
street.
it here in Watson's 1778, haven't you?
Yes, well, we're in Parliament Street then, of course.
John Reed, Parliament Street.
Yes.
And, of course, the two things that you're noted for is the penknife with how many blades?
576 blades.
576 blades.
Yes.
I suppose there isn't a penknife like that.
It was an exhibition knife. It was awarded a prize.
Yeah.
I think 1845 we got a prize from the Dublin Society. That's pre-Royal Dublin.
And this is the smallest scissors in the world.
Well, we don't have any small. It only measures a quarter of an inch.
A quarter of an inch. As someone says, can it be used?
Well, can it be used? Well, I wouldn't like to cut my toenails.
And this is a miniature knife.
Little table knife.
Yeah.
These are rather well-known knives to do antique collectors. And over the years, very eminent people have collected this sort of thing, and they've had knives and forks to match. Now, one day a lady came in, a very charming lady, and she said, I want you to recondition my knives and forks, and she produced a set of these. And I said to them, well, these are really beautiful, because they had silver mounts on the ends here and silver ferrules around the middle. And I said, that's the most beautiful set I've seen for a long time. I only ever saw one other set with that particular pattern mount. I said, that's very interesting. Who had the other set? I said, well, I'm sure you won't believe me, but it was the late W.B. Yeats. So she smiled a sad smile and said, I'm Mrs. Yeats.
You were born here,
oh, yes.
But there's nothing has changed in this shop from the day you were born. It's all old world. The sword cases, the Charles Dickens type cash desks, the counters, the display, everything.
Yes,
has it just flished by like that?
Oh, there's been very little change. We've tried not to change it, to maintain it as it was. In fact, people, every day somebody comes in and says, firstly, thank goodness you're still here. I think that's very complimentary.
I think
love
so,
that.
yeah.
And they're now bringing the children in to see the cash register or to see the handles on the door and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I must say, it will be with great regret when I have to pack it up, but I can't keep going forever.
Yes.
However, I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Well, you've been a great credit to the Cutlers and a great tradition to Dublin City.
Very nice of you, Eamon. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Goodbye.
So that's what my ear looks like. It's no wonder I can't hear. Garnett and Keegan's, of course, they're a very old Dublin firm, going back more than 100 years, fishing tackle and all sportsman's type equipment. Do you remember there used to be a big glass case here in the window, and there was a big trout in it, which was supposed to have been caught in the Camac River with a butcher's hook. I don't know where it's gone, whether someone had it for their dinner of a Friday. But of course, inside here, you will find Mr. J.R. Harris, the man who wrote the famous book, An Angler's Entomology, which gives the identification of all the insects and flies needed. An Angler's Dream Book. And J.R. Harris is still with us.
There's fast water there, and these little hackles at the end, they vibrate in the current.
Right.
It seems to have an additional attraction to the fish.
Well, yes, I'll have a couple of those, please.
There's one called the Thunder and Lightning.
Oh, yes, I believe that's very good.
It's quite a famous fly, and some people say it was invented on the Moy.
Garnett and Keegan's are famous for their salmon and trout flies. Nuala Scales and Josie Gibbons are experts at this type of work. Tying fish and flies requires a certain expertise and patience. These ladies love their work. Josie, in fact, has spent her whole working life, over 60 years, with Garnett and Keegan's. All the same now, aren't they very swanky flies and hooks? A bit of a change from the old safety pin bent over with a lump of dough bread sitting at the hot iron springs of the Grand Canal looking for gudgeon and pinkeens. All the same now, has a Margie done in Parliament Street everything? Chairs, books, foxes, boats, pictures, and the old fender. Do you remember the old Arden fenders? Home, sweet home. We had one of them around the fire when we were telling the ghost stories. And you remember the other things for hearing, the ear. Well, this is for talking through. This is a modern loudspeaker of about 1890. Will you bring that horse into the paddock, please? Horse number 2 to the paddock, please. Whenever I'm in Parliament Street, my mind is always full of Joycemen and James Kavanagh's wine room, Fenians, the newspaper, the Irish People and Number 12, and of course the firm Masons, who were optical and instrument makers in Dublin 200 years ago. City Hall was originally built as the Royal Exchange. Before that, it was the Earl of Cork's town house, Richard Boyle. That's how Cork Hill gets its name. And before that, of course, it was the Church of Maria del Dam, founded by St. Lawrence O'Toole. Dame Street takes its name from the dam of the River Poddle that ran around Dublin Castle. Of course, the castle itself, the Bedford Tower, and the Statue of Justice with our back to the people, and Newcomen Bank. And beside Newcomen Bank in Lord Edward Street, the old clinic, where we used to get our teeth pulled out when we'd be sent as kids from school, that pulled the head off us. They were worse than the dental in Lincoln Place. We leave the castle and City Hall for the hidden Dublin. Copper Alley. Not a very exciting place today, but what history, what stories of those walls could only speak. Saul's Court Academy, the Jesuit School of Dublin, Father John Austin and Father Thomas Beta, educating men, women and children in Dublin during the penal times. It takes its name from Lady Alice Fenton, who coined copper here in the year 1607. Her husband Geoffrey was a big shot in Dublin Castle. The old granite pillars to protect the building. I wonder did they come from Dalkey or Glencullen or Ballyedmond stuff. I don't know who the dodger was, but you can bet he was a Dublin wit. Do you remember when we were kids with them granite pillars, rubbing them to take the nicotine off so the schoolmaster wouldn't see we were smoking butts? There was also another unfortunate girl. Had a business premises in this alley. Her name was Darky Kelly, and she owned a tavern by the name of the Maiden's Tower. She was a sort of a madam of her day. I suppose a fella could get more than drink in it. Darky one night killed one of our clients and was taken to the gallows over at Bagot Street. Darky Kelly of Copper Alley. It's not every day in the week I look out a half door in the heart of the city of Dublin. Do you know where I am now? Well, I'll tell you. I'm in number 1 Copper Alley, the home of my good friend, Paul MacDonald. This is the original door that some of the students went through on their way out to Saul's Court Academy. 100 years ago, James Joyce lived in this house, but he wasn't a writer. He was a journeyman tailor. What do you think of that? 300 years old. Do you know, that old house should be preserved. And of course, they should break this down here and go straight through Copper Alley, because that's right through to the other part. And they should put plaques on the wall. John Austin, Thomas Beta, Saul's Court, Lady Alice Fenton, and I suppose a plaque for Darky Kelly of the Maiden's Tower.